Hi everybody, welcome to another tutorial. Today we are going to combine magazine pictures and napkins to create our focal image. Now people have been requesting tutorials on using magazines, so this is from a magazine ad, just a large size face, and I'm just cutting off some of the excess. I'm not sure at this point what I'm going to use. It has some words on it. Don't worry about it. We're going to deal with that later. And then I'm going to pair this magazine picture with this amaryllis napkin. Now, this is pocket tissue size. And these pocket tissues have not 2 layers, but 3 excess white layers. So be sure to take off all 3 layers. You can save that for something else. Now I am going to glue this onto a piece of copy paper, recycled copy paper in this case, to give it some strength, to make it easier to cut. If I water cut this like you normally see me doing, when I glue it on, whatever's underneath will show through. If I glue it down onto paper, whatever's behind it will not show through. And because I want to collage this on top of the magazine picture, and I know that right now, I'm just going to do it this way. I'm using my fluid matte medium. I put it underneath the napkin, then I'm putting it on top, and then I'm going to let this dry completely before I grab my scissors and cut it out. Now I'm just cutting out, keeping the parts together at first cut because I'm not sure exactly how I'm going to use it. I can always cut things apart, which I do later on. So if you have a hard time water cutting, if you glue it down onto paper. Now I could have just put the flowers in her hair like that, but I want a crown of flowers. So I'm going to cut out all of them. And I know that if I don't use it on this particular page, I will use it for something else. It just goes into one of my baskets and bins on my desk, and then I can grab it when I'm working on a different page. Now at this stage, I don't know which orientation I'm going in. Am I going to go landscape or am I going to go portrait? And I'm auditioning both until I make my final decision. Until you glue it down, it really isn't decided. So I'm playing with it one way or the other, and take the time to do that and experiment. And if you find something that you like, take a picture. Grab your camera or your phone and just take a picture, and then you can look and make a judgment kind of from a distance. Now here I'm just cutting apart some more of these elements just to give myself a little bit more freedom on how I want to arrange them. Now the whole color scheme really started with this amaryllis napkin. I love those colors. And right now I seem to be in the red burgundy zone, and you'll notice from a lot of my tutorials, it's where I'm at. It's what's inspiring me. So now that I know basically where I'm going with the focal image, I'm going to put my attention to the background. So I grabbed this linked tiles. This is a 12 by 12 stencil from the Crafter's Workshop. This is one of my favorite stencils. And I'm putting thickened gesso through the stencil. This is going to give a very slight texture. Now, if you don't have gesso that thickens naturally, like I do, you can thicken gesso with a little bit of modeling paste, or you can buy thick gesso or extra thick gesso. And it's great for this technique. Now, you're not going to get a precise imprint, and that's not what I'm going for. I want this background to be very soft, to be kind of faded, read a little bit of vintage. So when you're picking magazine images, you don't have to worry if there's print where you don't want print. All you have to do is take white gesso and paint over it. Now you could also do this if it was the wrong color. If I wanted, her dress was purple and I wanted pink in my page, I can just put a coat of gesso and then paint it the color I want to go with my page. Remember, the magazine picture is just the beginning. It's the first step. You get to add to it and adjust. So while that's drying, I'm putting the base coat of color to my background, and I've decided I want that amaryllis floral crown to be the highlight of the page. So I want the background to be very neutral. So I grabbed unbleached titanium and I'm putting it on very quickly, very unevenly, and then I'm wiping it back with a baby wipe. And wherever the gesso was, it comes off more because the gesso is acting as a resist, and that's allowing for that texture to show through, that pattern. I don't want my background to be flat. I want it to have darker and lighter areas and interest. In hopes of adding more pattern to the background, I grabbed this dotted ring stencil, and I'm stenciling with white acrylic paint. This is giving a very subtle pattern to the background. Now, spoiler alert, because of what I do coming up, you don't see this, but I love it. And I'm making a note to myself that the combination of the link tile stencil with the dotted ring stencil looks really good, and even in this neutral background color scheme. So it's definitely something I'm going to do again. When you find something that works, grab it. So I put back the focal image where I think I'm going to put it, seeing what I need, and I decide I want to add some of that pink burgundy color to the background. So I grab, I believe this is not alizarin crimson, but cadmium red, and I add a little bit of Naples yellow to tone it to more the color that's in that amaryllis. And I'm watering it down. I'm adding water to it. And then I'm going to smoosh it onto the page and add water, get it to move, and I want a very organic feel. I want it to be very soft, very imprecise. Now this color that I'm putting here is not knocking back that dotted ring stenciling, which is why you don't see it in the end. If I wanted to, I would do it on top, but I decided the page went another way. So I keep adding more water, more paint. I want some of this pinky color throughout the background. I want it to look like it's maybe floral in the background. trying to add more. When you get it to a certain level and you like where it's at, you want to dry it. And then I'm just adding more little by little. Putting the focal image back where it's going to go and just looking at it and saying, where do I want to add color? But I want that organic feel, so I'm using that piece of packaging to smoosh it to get that soft look. And let me tell you, I am so in love with the background that I will definitely be revisiting it. I've got other stencils and other ideas for things that I can use with this similar background. So I grab Hooker's Green and I'm watering it down, and I want to introduce some of this green into the background. Now there's a little bit of green on the amaryllis, and that's why I want some of it to go into the background. Now some of that red, pink that's there is still wet, so when it touches, it runs out, and I do go in and I do some smooshing with the green, and you can see that here. I wanted to bring out this link tile stencil a little bit more, so I line it up roughly where the texture, where my gesso was, and I'm stenciling with white acrylic paint. This is knocking back the color, breaking up the color, and making this pattern show, and it's softening the page. I want this background to be blurry. So the smooshing, so the stenciling with white, all helps create and achieve that effect. So back, putting the focal image where it belongs. This background reminds me of like apple blossom time, which is where I'm going with it. You're definitely going to see me revisit this. Putting it on, then I'm thinking about where I'm going to put my sentiment, and then I decide I'm going to colorize her shirt. I'm going to use the green. I'm going to introduce that green that's a little bit in the background, and I'm going to paint her shirt that color. I'm adding the paint. I don't care that this is splotchy. I know I'm going to add some stamping or stenciling on top of this. I know I'm going to do some shading. This is just the base layer. And I'm rubbing it with my fingers, and that's adding some interest and texture. And because I've gessoed it, it's going to take this color medium, this water. So now I decide that I'm going to leave the top of her head, the hair showing. And it's brown, and it leads me to using brown to do some stamping. So I grabbed this stamp from Biddy Grunge. It's the Stampers Anonymous stamp set. And I believe that's available at Ninny's Napkins, as well as the many TCW stencils. You can check out that and other affiliate links in my description box if you wish. I'm just adding some interest to the background and adding that brown color that goes with her hair, because now I'm not going to cover up all her hair with the flowers. Then I grabbed a script stamp, and I'm going to add a little bit of script to the background. Every background you want color, contrast, pattern, texture. Someone recently asked, like, how do you know when you're done, or how do you know when you're not done? You just follow. Sometimes you have a picture in your head that you're going towards, and sometimes you're deciding as you go. So I absolutely love this. I'm splattering with gold paint here, just to add a little bit of bling to the page. And I'm going to glue everything down with my TCW gel medium. Now this is matte finish. And I find that with magazines, the gel medium works better than the fluid. Some magazines are very thin. All magazines aren't created equal, and they'll wrinkle more, or it soaks up weirdly. So I find I have more success with gel medium. And I love the matte finish that it gives. It takes off that shine that some magazine pages have. So I'm at the crossroads here. I need to finalize exactly how I'm going to put this crown, floral crown, on her head. And once you decide, you want to glue down what is underneath first. So sometimes here, this is where you need an extra 5 pairs of hands. But again, there is no right or wrong. It's just go with what you feel looks best. I think these pocket tissues, you get 5 with an order. So you're going to end up, this is one tissue, one napkin, and you have lots here. If you got all 5, you would have enough for multiple pages or projects. I hope to do a few more videos using magazine pictures, different ways that you can incorporate them onto a page. I don't use a lot of magazine pages these days, but it's definitely a great source of focal images, especially if you like doing collage. This was a sentiment that I have sitting on my desk. It's not the one I end up using. Now I'm going to shade around my focal image, and at this point I'm thinking, you know, I've used brown already. I'm just going to do it with brown, just to see. I don't want to go too dark, and I'm thinking maybe black is going to be too dark. So I'm using my shading technique here, and if you do a search in my channel for shading, you will find that video if you're interested in learning how to do this. And then I'm going to edge the page in the same way. If you do a magazine page, a page with using a magazine, I would love to see it. Be sure to share it in my Facebook group, Art Journaling and Mixed Media Creations, and be sure to tag me. That way I will absolutely see it. Now I come back and I do decide to do some shading with the black. My focal image I don't feel popped quite enough, so I'm coming in with black, and that's what you see me doing right now. But I like it when there's almost 2 colors there. There's the brown and the black. It just adds another depth to it. And then I'm using the black on the amaryllis as well. And there's lots of flowers there, so I just want to bring out the flowers. Bring out those petals. And remember, this has a good coat of gel medium on it. That has turned it into a non-porous surface, so the paint is not soaking into the napkin. That's really important. Shading is sometimes a long process. I don't necessarily leave all of that in, but I do want you to see it evolve and change. And then I'm adding the black around the outside as well, combining it with the brown, and you get both. Now I want to add some highlights, so I'm shading or highlighting with white acrylic paint. Same technique. I typically do a whole lot less of it. And this really brightens up the amaryllis blossoms. And I'm basically following where the highlights were from the original artist. Then I grab this magic ladder stencil and I'm just stenciling some pattern onto her shirt. I was going to go floral and I thought this kind of looks a little bit like leaves. I just didn't want to leave it plain. So this was an interesting, the size of the stencil matched. I cut out a sentiment from sentiment pack number 3 of my digital sentiment packs, and you can check those out at Ninny's Napkins as well if you're interested. And I thought Live Life in Full Bloom works for this. And there we have the finished page. I love that background. I definitely will revisit it either with the same colors or a different color scheme. It's a great way of getting a soft watercolory vintage background with texture and pattern. Thank you so much for watching. Hit the subscribe button, click the bell to make sure you get notified of all upcoming videos and you won't miss any. Until next time, go get creative.